This is 100.9 FM. Hey, WXIR, Extreme Independent Radio. In Rochester, NY, and online at 109WXIR.com.
Yes, y'all. Welcome to the #1 radio talk show in Western New York. I am your host, Rodney Brown, also known as the Community Regulator. Many always ask me, what is the crow's nest? My reply, the crow's nest is a partly enclosed platform high on a ship's mast for use as a lookout to gather information and inform the crew of any danger approaching or lying in the mist ahead. In other words, this is a radio talk show that looks out for you. My only allegiance is to the people. I am also an author, journalist. My latest book, Silent Leader, the biography of Dr. Freddie L. Thomas. The foreword was done by Dr. Walter Cooper, former Kodak scientist and New York State Regent Emeritus. He has a school named after him on Congress Drive. Also, Dr. Thomas has a school named after him on Scio Street. Dr. Thomas was a scientist at Kodak also, but he also was a geneticist at the University of Rochester. This book is a book of inspiration. It's a book of aspiration and triumph. This book of a local hero is geared to prompt intellectual and social transformation to its readers. Silent Leaders in the University of Rochester Rare Book Collections. Learn more at drfreddythomas.com. Also, I'm the executive director of Brown Publishing, LLC, a multimedia outlet which is geared to disseminate news and resourceful information through several platforms, including print, newspaper Southwest Tribune, digital, internet, and radio, as we are doing right now. Brown Publishing, LLC founding is based on our responsibility to rekindle journalism and restore trust, integrity, and accountability in media. Our mission seeks to present a balanced view of relative issues to build bridges among diverse populations. Now, I have already came back at you one more time again. I have been around the sun. It only takes me 7 days to get around from Wednesday to Wednesday. And every time I'm more informed. And I always have a special guests who are very exciting special guests. And when I say exciting, I mean informative. Very informative. So we look to learn about a lot of good things that are going on in Rochester, about a lot of services that's going on in Rochester that you probably need to be a part of or can benefit from. And our special guest is no other than Mr. Jerome Underwood, Action for a Better Community President and CEO. Jerome Underwood, thanks for being on the show today.
Good afternoon, Brother Rodney. It is my pleasure. It's been a while. I think it was pre-COVID the last time I was here. So I'm glad to be back in the crow's nest.
Oh, definitely. And as you know, if you're in the crow's nest, which is a radio talk show that looks out for people, that means you are doing more than the same is looking out for people. So always a good time to talk with you. Always a good time to talk with you. I just know it's going to be a dynamic conversation that we're going to have because always one. I went outside just to, make sure that the buzz him in, and he's on the phone talking some real stuff. I said, man, you don't never use none of your time but to have some purposeful conversation. And true indeed, he said, you're right. True indeed. So he's already fired up, yo. So we're gonna definitely get right into it. And I just want you to know that Mr. Underwood spent 9 years of his career serving as vice president and commercial product manager for community reinvestment with HSBC Bank. Over that span of 9 years, Mr. Underwood held various management positions within the Rochester City School District. Throughout his fulfillment of these functions, cultural responsiveness and black male achievement were his top priorities. Mr. Underwood's life's mission of the eradication of poverty and the ultimate goal of societal self-sufficiency continues to be a fueling force in all that he does, thus merging his personal and professional life into one. Action for a Better Community is a community action agency that promotes and provides opportunities for low-income individuals and families to become self-sufficient. So let's go right into it, my brother. Definitely. I mean, the resume speaks for itself. I just can just close down the show right now. You know what I mean? But Definitely. I mean, since we've been here, you tell me so many good things. I know we went through the programs that was going on at ABC, that you guys do so many different programs that hit so many different areas and so many branches on your tree that you help people from the adult, you help youth, you help people that's this preschool. So you guys do a lot of things. You not only help them on the educational way, you always help them in the way to, should I say, behavioral way, and ways to make our not only community better, but to make our streets better, and certainly in ways, in the same time, making our students, our youth, better people. So with this getting into that, what has been going on since we last talked? You guys got going on down there?
There's a lot that's going on, Rodney, because our people have needs that are unmet. But before I start talking about today, you mentioned that we got many leaves and many branches. But before you can have leaves and branches, you got to have roots.
True indeed.
And the roots of ABC, I can never talk about our agency without talking about the roots and the people who gave birth to ABC, and the reason that ABC was born. It was as a response to injustice,
True indeed.
And
True indeed.
The people on whose shoulders I continue to stand. Some of them, most of them are dear ancestors now, but you even mentioned what I call the original Google, the original griot, Dr. Walter Cooper.
True indeed.
I spent about 2 hours with him a couple months ago, just to listen.
That's right.
That's right.
And
because he's one of those people I got to check in with every now and then to get guidance.
True indeed.
True or indeed. Correction or True validation, indeed. Whichever it may be. So we owe a lot of respect to him and the dearly departed ancestors who continue to guide in the spiritual realm. Let's put it that way.
True indeed.
So we are in what some people will call a post-COVID environment. COVID is still with us, but certainly we're not on lockdown anymore. People are back out. And what we, like many other people, needed to do during the pandemic and still now was adjust.
Right.
We typically are not in the emergency services realm.
Right.
At ABC, we prefer our operational modus operandi, so to speak, is more of a case management situation where we try to transform somebody's life as opposed to do a transaction. Right. Where, I need this RG&E bill paid because I'm behind. We do a little bit of that work.
Right.
But the thing is, say for instance, if we're doing that, there's a reason why you're late on that RG&E bill. And if we have to help you out, or if it's the rent, there's a reason that happened. So we want to make sure we deal with the underlying issues with that, so that 6 months down the road, you're not coming back with the same concern or the same issue.
True indeed.
So we are part of this national network of community action agencies.
You like giving wraparound services, pretty much.
Without a doubt, we call it the whole family approach. And as you may know, and for the benefit of our listeners, ABC is a part of a national network of community action agencies. So what that affords us the capability to do is to learn from our brothers and sister agencies across the country, of what's working well in Pick a Place, Albuquerque, Atlanta, Seattle, Puerto Rico.
Right.
We have a couple of agencies. So we espouse to what we call the whole family approach.
Right.
And many know that our largest program, if you will, is Head Start. Because education, we know that is one of the primary things.
That's the key.
That people can get themselves towards self-sufficiency. All of our programs are guided by income eligibility. We work for the poor. We work on behalf of the poor. So if Brother Rodney has a son in Head Start, okay, we're going to take care of little Rodney for sure, but always know that we're going to be working on Rodney, because why are you even eligible for Head Start? Why are you below the federal poverty guideline. So whatever the reason is, without shame, because it's not what happened, what's wrong with a person, but what happened to a person. That's our line of question.
Right.
So let's just say, and I'm making up Rodney, and Rodney didn't have a high school diploma for whatever reason. Right? Well, guess what? Action for Better Community has a GED program right at 400 West Avenue.
Right.
And, there are a number of adults who are in different phases of working towards their GED every day.
Right.
But we don't stop there. Okay, Rodney gets the GED, all right. So what's next?
Right.
Because we want to put Rodney in a situation where he can earn get an upwardly mobile living wage job. I want to say upwardly mobile because he may get that entry level job. We don't want him there forever.
Right.
We want to get him to a point where he's no longer eligible for any of ABC services.
True indeed. That's the goal.
Because from a social emotional point of view and an economic stability point of view, he would have worked himself to that position where he's no longer eligible. And when I say he, I mean he and his family, his household. So literally, and that's a small example of us taking action to make a better community.
And what's the key is that it's the way how you approach and the way how you think of how to treat this person.
Yeah.
You didn't want to try to go to the obvious, should I say the obvious popular diagnosis. You say, no, let's try to find out what happened
to you.
Yeah.
You
want to diagnose the patient, the right diagnosis first in order so you can help them.
It's called a trauma-informed approach.
True indeed.
And because we know that stuff happens to people, and, we want to be loud and proud about changing the narrative around people who are in need. Now, notice, I deliberately have not said the word poverty.
Right.
People who have more need than other people. So, and I'm going to say the word poverty to illustrate some things because I read what people who have a different ideological perspective have to say about poverty. Mm-hmm. And the prevailing sentiment is, well, if y'all just worked a little harder.
Right. Pull yourself by your bootstrap.
I ain't got no boots.
True indeed.
But if y'all work a little harder, if you educated yourself, y'all won't have these. It's such a narrow-minded view of reality.
That's right.
Because, there's so many analogies I could use. Because we're close to the Genesee River right now, and if we look down into the Genesee River and saw some children in the river, of course, the natural thing for us to do is go try pull the children out of the river to save them.
Right.
We want to take that a little further. We want to go back upstream and say, who's throwing the children in the river in the first place?
True indeed.
Why are children in the river?
So
we're going to go upstream as far as we can, and this is what we call looking at the antecedents.
That's right.
What are the causations? How did we get here in the first place?
Right.
So, and that's not a program. We run programs because people have need today, and we need to deal with those needs. While at the same time, because we can walk and chew gum at the same time, mm-hmm. we have, like a factory, we have an R&D department. Mm-hmm. It's called planning and evaluation. Mm-hmm. Planning, mm-hmm. evaluation, because as we plan and we got to evaluate to make sure what we intended to do. So this is extremely difficult work because the critics of the anti-poverty work is like, well, so how is that war on poverty going?
Right.
I heard, one individual say, well, there's more poor people in America now than there were in 1970. Again, a very narrow-minded view because the population has grown exponentially.
Right.
Yes, there are more people, So what we know that the programs we operate will not eliminate poverty. Mm-hmm. We're very sober about that. Mm-hmm. The hardest part of our work is the systemic nature and those things that allow poverty to exist comfortably without us rebelling against those things. Policy, practice, laws
Right.
that have unintended consequences, and some brothers may say intended consequences,
Right.
to keep our people, in need.
Right.
You know.
I'm sorry, sir. I want to know, brother, would say intended.
Yeah, yeah. That's why the poverty pin.
Right.
So we have to get at those things and get at them and swing as hard as possible with a baseball bat to the teeth of
Right.
those items.
Right.
And that's where we were born.
Right.
That's
Right.
our birth. We came through the birth canal of injustice. Out of the 64 riots, which again this station has talked so much about, but we never forget that, because if you forget, then you're gonna lose your way. So I'm
Right.
always reminded that we're justice workers.
Right.
We're trying to find justice for everybody, because what's his name, Brian Stevens, who founded the the lynching museum exhibit down in Alabama. I love this quote from him. He said, "Wealth is not the opposite of poverty. The opposite of poverty is justice."
True indeed. True
Yeah.
indeed. True indeed. True indeed. Justice. Justice take care of everything. Just take care of everything. And we Rochester, and when it comes to black and brown people, a third of black and brown families live under the poverty level. I mean, this is abject poverty that's going on in Rochester, has been going on for a long time.
Indeed.
And we have tried a lot of things. We had organizations like United. We tried a lot of programs. We had programs before them that tried a lot of things. And that's always a big question. And, like you say, that you only can do so much at ABC, and you guys are doing a lot. You spreading out the love in so many different ways. You guys are doing a lot. But it's things that not only that nonprofit organization can do, it's things that the government can do that'll make it a lot easier to what y'all doing, to make it more comfortable for what y'all doing. And one of the things that I was studying at Cornell University under Dr. James Turner, and you talked about that someone used to always ask you, should I say, propose you with a problem, and then it would say what you going to do about it. And that's how he used to do me. He said, okay, we got poverty all throughout these inner cities. And this is a while back, so inner cities been like this for a while now. And he said, we got poverty all through these inner cities. And he said, all right, you here studying under me, a sociologist that deals with society problems, which is one of your degrees, said, so what you going to do about it?
Yeah.
He said, you need to figure that out. And he's been giving me books and books and books and said, read that book, and say, you might can figure something out when you keep reading.
Yeah.
So one thing I did figure out was that a lot of places, and have been tried before, it even have been tried in New York recently with Blasio, is that the biggest thing that we're missing is what the government could do. Instead of the government not looking at what happened to this person. They might go in the surface and say what happened. So we have things like the RIS committee and things like that. They recognize systematic things that have been going on in policies, which you guys fight every day just to help people.
Yeah.
But they can really do something with these policies, and they don't have to fight them. Is that they can take taxpayers' money, earn money that they're getting from the people, and they can do co-ops. Now, what is co-ops? Co-ops are who owns business. Co-ops is a co-op is that people who owns a business determines the type of entity it is. When an individual earns and operates a company, it's often a sole proprietorship. When two or more people own a company, it's often a partnership. A company can incorporate, form a corporation that is owned by a few than 100 people. An S Corp, or hundreds or even thousands of people, a C Corp. When the people who use their products and services a company has to offer and own and operate the company, it is known as a cooperative. Aside from the ownership structure, there are a few other distinctive features that set cooperatives apart from other types of businesses. What is a cooperative? A cooperative is an autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet their command economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. In other words, cooperatives are created by people who have a specific need and who are willing to work together to operate and to organize a company that will meet the need. So what I'm saying is this. The government itself, our local government, creates industry. And the industry is going to be owned by the residents in that city who are in poverty. And they are, like you have shareholders. They are the shareholders of that company. So that means that they make their own decisions through a democratic vote. They set their own wages. And they are part of the company, so they got something into it. They are invested into it. And this has been done by Blasio in New York City when the Bronx was one of the poorest areas at one time. And he incorporated cooperatives, industries, where the people who worked at the company own the company. Now, this has been done in a shadow way one time in Rochester, New York. As we talk about ABC and how it was kicked off because needs and things of that nature, that's what it's there for. Now, when Minister Florence forced,
peace be upon him,
when he forced Kodak to hire people, and they were hiring around 3,000 people a month when he forced Kodak and a lot of other people to start hiring people. But he said that wasn't enough to bring everybody out of poverty because everybody wasn't getting the jobs that would take them out of poverty. So what he did, that he got Kodak and them to finance, in the government to finance Eltrex, a company that's, I forget what street it's on. Yep. And Eltrex is a company that was run by the people. And they said now they could have not that they want to just hire people, they could get their own contracts from Kodak. Not just hire me, I get the contract. So whatever you got to get made, I can make it. I get a contract from IBM. So they was making it and they controlled it. And that was bringing them out of poverty. I remember when I was a kid coming through here in Rochester and visiting some family members, man, people's houses was kept up. People had boats. People had, people was living above the poverty line. People living good. Kodak was doing good. IBM was doing good. Eltrex was doing good over there. Company getting things. Everybody was doing good. GM was. Everybody had GM jobs because that co-op showed and brought in more hiring, brought in more talent. So they said that these guys is not only they're competing now. You see what I'm saying? So it created the community to come together. It created justice. So I say that, I talked to, my wife, LaShae Harris. We talked about co-ops. We talked about things. That's one of the things that I think that can help us get out of poverty is to have our government, our city council, and our mayor get down together and wait for the hire, because they're hiring us. You see what I'm saying? We can bring in 1,000 people saying career day. We bring in 1,000 companies in Rochester, and we say, we need people to get hired. These people get hired. They come and show their face and get on the news and get a clip. And guess what? A couple of people get jobs, and guess what? A third of people are still in poverty after they come every year and go every year. So we need to stop asking the people to hire us. We got to create our own industries so we can start getting contracts from them. So we can start getting global contracts from people from around the world. To saying that, hey, we make this and we can ship it here. We make this and we can ship it here. So we got to have co-ops. We got to have our government come involved in a different way. So that's how I see our way to get ourselves out of poverty. That's what I studied. And I always thought that it was a great idea. So this is my thing. This having the bully horn right now, to be able to say things. You know what I mean? Because one thing that, my college that I went through, Claflin University, which is a HBCU.
Yes, it is.
And private college, their motto was, the world need more visionaries. The world need more. That means that they need people to go out there and make something happen for their people. You see, that's what they were training us to do.
Yeah.
You know, to go out there and make something happen for his people. You know what I mean? When they say they take the best students and send them to the Ivy League schools, like me, and send me to Cornell and send other people, so we can see what we got to deal with to make our communities better. And I think that's a great idea. And I think that's something like a leader like you need to look more into, so you can get with those leaders, the other leaders like my wife, LaShae Harris, and other people like that, because you have been all through the system. For I say, the school, you have very important positions in the Rochester School District. You know where that system is like. And you've been in the accounting system, the banking system. You know, I talk to Loretta all the time. She always, Loretta Scott, former council member Loretta Scott. She always tell me how she had to trap you all. She had to trap you all.
Literally,
Right.
literally is the person who got me to volunteer at ABC. My first interaction with ABC was volunteering on the finance committee.
Right.
Literally, and that's back in '06. A year after that, I was on the finance committee. A year after that, I was on the board. And a year after that, I was the board chair. And look where I sit now. So I'm indebted to Loretta Scott, you know, for showing me that path.
True indeed.
You know, but with respect to your thoughts about co-ops, I don't disagree. As a matter of fact, let me say it in a positive way, because we believe in assets. I agree. And I put an and on it. I go further, Brother Rodney.
Sure indeed.
Because I think not only does our government have an obligation, but so does our private sector,
Sure
our
indeed.
education sector, our you name it sector. Because ultimately, when we talk about justice, you know, a budget, as I've grown to know, is a statement of values.
True indeed.
So with respect to whether it's a municipal budget, like we're talking about the government, or corporate budget, what you're going to put in that budget is a reflection of your values.
True indeed.
Because all of us take ourselves to work, whatever our work is.
True indeed.
Could be, like I say, at 30 Church Street, or was it 39 West Main, at the county seat of the county,
Right.
or over at Strong or Rochester Region, wherever you go. And why shouldn't we be at all of those places?
Right.
The elephant in the room, or inside of what allows us to be where we are, why I say so comfortable with, as you mentioned, a third of the people in the city of Rochester living below the poverty level, is deep-seated, institutionalized, and systemic racism.
True indeed.
Because there are many corporations around here doing well.
Many
And when you ask them,
Right.
about, so how many people of color work here,
Right.
or are in management positions, it gets kind of sticky, right? Now, if it's a private corporation, right, as you articulate there, you know, C Corp, S Corp, partnership, you can't tell them what to do.
Right.
However, if you are the government,
Right.
and these same organizations are seeking contracts with the government,
Right.
you can tell them what to do.
Yes.
You know, and you can hold them accountable.
Yes.
So one of the concerns I have, recent concerns, you have heard as many, I'm sure your listeners, in the past 4 or 5 years, there's been a huge increase in DEI conversation. Everybody's got a DEI this and a DEI that. To be honest, Brother Rodney, that concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
I consider it to be somewhat of a rush of blood. Because invariably, most of these DEI jobs
Go ahead.
go to people who look like you and I, people of color. What the industry has yet to formulate, as far as I'm aware, and I'm fairly aware, is the accountability piece. because DEI is a kind of
Accountability.
nice way of not saying the word racism, right?
True indeed.
So there are no accountability metrics to say that DEI is working. Let me give you an example, right? Health. I mentioned earlier that we, as black people, people of African descent, we lead too many of the data points that are negative, right? With respect to health, the health disparities, right? So in each of our major hospital systems, right, they get lots of funding from the federal and state governments.
Yes.
I don't begrudge them for that. I don't.
Right.
But I do have a concern because while they're receiving these millions of dollars, the health disparities are getting wider.
It's getting wider.
That's an issue. So that's something that we have been working on, right? And we have recently had a cordial conversation with the CEOs of those organizations, not only just us as ABC, but we have brothers and sisters in town. We call ourselves the Racism is a Public Health Crisis Coalition. So who are those organizations? I'm sure you can, if I ask you to mention them, you know, Jordan Health, ABC,
Right.
the Urban League,
Right.
Common Ground Health, Ibero, the YWCA. I'm missing somebody. Ubuntu Village Works, headed by the amazing Melanie Funches, and the Healthy Baby Network, headed by another amazing sister, Sharita Bullock. What all of our of course, Action for a Better Community. What all of us have in common is that we're led by people of color. Every CEO of the organizations that just remembered, and collectively we serve about 70,000 people in this city.
Right.
Those same people who go to those hospitals. So again, this is just one example. So, but each of those systems has a DEI function, right? Our concern is, okay, why aren't we seeing an improvement in infant mortality, adult morbidity? That's just one example, right? So, and if that's not happening, the DEI person that you just hired, the brother or sister, like, you look, it's Jerome, like, Jerome, what's going on with that? Fall guy.
Right.
I'm concerned about
Fall
that.
guy.
Right? Looking at another industry. When we're talking about, so we're working on that, closing the health disparities. Another really important issue we're working on is closing the racial wealth gap. You and I know that one of the most important tools in closing the racial wealth gap is home ownership.
Right. Right.
We know how we got here, where people who look like us were denied, systemically denied
That's right.
opportunity
Right.
to own homes.
That's right.
It is no coincidence that the zip codes in Rochester that were systemically redlined are the very same zip codes that have the most concentrated poverty.
That's right. That's right.
So what if we deliberately look to undo that
That's right.
in what we're calling greenlining
That's right.
as opposed to redlining?
Okay.
So
True
not
indeed.
just only the areas, but the people.
Right.
So also recently we have met with a group of banks and real estate brokers to look at the data, because I'm a data geek.
Right.
What does the data say? Because with data, there's no emotion to it, right?
Right.
We want to take the emotion out of the conversation because we're talking about people's life, which is an emotional thing,
Right.
but still we want to get past the emotion to get to the what are we going to do?
Right. What are you going to do?
Just like your professor said to you, what are you going to do about the situation? So we want to make sure that we work in collaboration with others to attack these systemic things that can lead to increased home ownership for people who look like you and I. Because once you have that home now, which means, okay, you have the financial literacy. That's the kind of stuff that we can work on to make sure that our clients, remember I told you, GED, what's next?
Right.
To have that financial acumen so that when you step to a bank or a mortgage company,
That's right.
yeah, you're going to have 650, 700 as a credit score,
Right.
even higher. so that you're ready.
Right.
You got some down payment work. You're ready so that you're ready to go to that next level of home ownership. And with that, you can leverage that home to do other things, just like other people.
Just like other people.
You know,
always been the key to the American dream.
These systemic things are getting back, to your question of the co-ops and the need for that, without a doubt. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse of justice everywhere.
Sure, indeed.
Because any organization, any entity around here, right, we should be adequately represented at those agencies or private corporations or colleges, or run them.
Right.
So that's not as simple as saying that, but to make sure we have the educational background, the mental temerity to do it, the skill, technique, ability, and I believe that we do. Right? I'm looking at a living example of you. I mean, when I was, as you were, just reading off the stuff, I'm thinking, well, who's going to interview Rodney? Because you have you have a story to tell too, brother. So, but we have. I think I'm to do the kind of work that I do. You have to be optimistic, and I'm very optimistic.
And sure you are.
You have to be optimistic, and while at the same time trying to light as many torches as possible, so that we can link up with brothers and sisters of the same ideological perspective and try to move us as a collective forward. We're not absolved of any responsibility, because we have to be the ones. Nobody can do push-ups for you.
Right.
Nobody can exercise for you.
Right.
But when you do your push-ups and your exercise, then you're fit, then you can, it's time to get in the game.
Sure indeed.
So we're working on those things to try to make sure that the folks we work with are ready to seize the opportunities when they present themselves, while at the same time holding the systems accountable for being fair and just. And we think that those two things need to happen consecutively in order for us to really get to a point of liberation.
It's definitely that's the whole thing. I'm glad you bring up, by the diversity of a DUI, and because that's what I'm saying is that we have all these companies. I mean, you can ride around Rochester, see all these companies that's flooring, and there's no people in there. It's not even a 1% that's in there that's from Rochester, that's black or brown, and we giving them taxpayers breaks and everything, and they got this DEI in there sitting there that's supposed to make sure diversity come in the ranks, and this never happened. So yes, definitely, I'm glad that you guys are meeting with Banks and holding them to that responsibility and making sure that these things are happening, because we need to keep our eyes on those things also.
Yes.
At the same time, as you say,
working with the folks
and thinking about other things at the same time too, because those things right there have to change.
Yeah.
That's the only way. I mean, those things will have to change, because we done too mixed up now.
Yeah.
So those things will have to change.
And there's some healthy skepticism and even cynicism with our detractors saying, "Oh, we haven't tried all sorts of stuff." But what I don't think we have tried effectively is to hold the systems accountable, because the narrative has been work harder, work harder, work harder. But there's too many examples of people working hard that when they show up for that opportunity, whether it be an entrepreneurial opportunity, they step to a bank and say, "Hey, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah." And they go, your zip code ain't right. Or for people, because most people work for somebody else, go get a job, and even if you get that job, the data shows, and I'm not making this up, for males, with the same qualifications, I'm only going to be paid about 81% of my Caucasian male counterpart.
Right.
For our sisters, it's even less. They're going to pay them 60-some%. So pay equity is a thing. We need that, because if things were equitable, i.e. just, it will take a lot of inefficiency, because people, my brother, my young brother Simeon, Simeon describes it as a stroke. Again, a medical term, because if you have how you get a stroke, certain part of the body is shut off from blood flow. But when you get that stroke, trust me, the entire body is going to suffer. Putting that into economic terms, if you shut off economic opportunity from a certain part of your metropolitan statistical area, aka MSA, all of it is going to suffer.
Always, and you know, and that's why our country is getting weaker and weaker, because we don't take advantage of all the citizens, you know, because a lot of them get left behind, and a lot of the best ones for the job get left behind. But I just want to say this because I do want to touch on this another important things. But I just want to say this before I go, and you know, like I always say, that we got to keep our eyes on the prize. You guys are doing great work around there, and it's just that we got to get the government to do something. You know, definitely do something. I mean, because I saw so many. Should I say workshops where you have people going down there to say they want to get into construction business, and you got all these companies that come in, they do this every year. You got all these type of programs that come around, and these people never hire our people. So guess what? We got money in the bank, and it's called taxpayers' money. And they need to take that taxpayers' money and create industries, create co-ops for our people to take our own self out of poverty. We need to start taking our money and invest in ourselves, and start investing our money in the people who don't even live in our city, who taking our dollars out the city every day. So we need to start thinking about that. And I put that to all my local government, and that's the county and the city. You know, we got to stop messing around with all these committees, and let's go ahead and spend the money, create our own, should I say, financial stability, our own bootstraps, you know, so we can do that as our money, it's our taxpayers' dollars, and we need to do that. And that's my thing right now, and that's what I'm going with. But I do want to touch bases, and like I say, Action for a Better Community is doing a great job one more time, and like I say, they are doing what a lot of organizations that don't do, and that's why I always bring on Jerome. I just tell him earlier that his work is his work personally, what he does outside of his job, is entwined in his work, what he does on his job. He always talks about cultural responsiveness, you know, and black achievement, even though at the same time he's trying to help every black, brown, white, no matter who comes through that door, he's trying to help everybody who needs self-sufficiency. And that's what they do, from the adult to the old to the young. And so I applaud that. I don't applaud many nonprofit organizations, but I applaud the one that Jerome Underwood has been running, and who has been running it way before him. It always was the top class who always thinking about the people. But I do want to touch on Jerome. I didn't want to play on music. I'm going to jump right into. I do want to touch on our youth and get some type of analyzation of should I say, the state of our youth today. And it looks pretty bad. And I know you deal with a lot of youth. You have programs for the youth. I mean, they are out there. I mean, this look crazy. That's going on out there, and I see organized crime. I see gangs. That's what I see. I see organized crime. You know, you call it street crime, when people smash and grab and all this type of stuff. I mean, this stuff is organized. You know, we got gangs that's going on and that's took our children. And, you know, and we have not came to that diagnosis yet that's saying that our kids are in gangs. And that's exactly what's going on. And as we don't come to that diagnosis, then our parents can't look out and say, oh, as my kid got these tattoos, or my kid throwing up these signs, or my kid hanging around these other people. We're not able to alert the parents what to look for that knows the kids are in the gangs, because we not want to realize that they are gangs. And that's what I see that's killing us today, is that our kids has been taken over by gangs, and our school system has definitely been failing them from number one. So it's even easier for the gangs can come in, because gangs usually take over cities that's in abject poverty. It's an easy place, it's an easy catch, and that's how things get started. Every time you have poverty, you have gangs. When the Irishman came over here and they was poor, the Irish wasn't gangs. When the Italians came over here and was poor, they wasn't gangs. When the black man been here before all them and they got free and they got them, they was in gangs. But guess what? All of them rise above their political suffrage. The Irish, the Caucasian. But because one person's skin color, we have never been able to get over our political suffrage and things that comes down to us in such systematic ways to keep us down. So what is your take on that?
We don't have enough time. I think a lot about that. I think about that. It's a constant thought, because your lead into that was, you know, what is the state of our youth right now, and what predominates the airwaves is, you know, the the incidents of violence that our young people are involved in, particularly the car thefts right now, which seem to be the thing du jour, as I would call it. And you know, we have some not so old people are sort of influencing our young children's minds by ways of sort of indoctrination to go do these nefarious things.
13, 14 years old, got guns.
So they didn't come up with, these are not original ideas by our, as we call them, watoto, our children. These are not original ideas by them. They've been influenced by, as I said, not so old people. So you mentioned the Irish and other ethnicities. I tend not to think too much about what they do, other than this. One thing that you will find, and you mentioned liberation and economic liberation for those folks, the thing that we have yet to embrace, and embrace it in a holistic, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it with respect to us, is us.
Right.
Our roots and culture.
There you go.
Because the Irish know that they're what? Irish.
The Italians know that they're
You understand?
Italians, right.
We're not there yet.
Right.
Because I've talked to many, many people, and we are African.
Right.
You know, because I don't know if there was a date or an event that rendered us not African. And if there is a date or an event that happened, I'd like somebody to tell me, because the one thing, if there was one thing, and there's more than one, but certainly there's one thing that we have in common, and it's that continent. Now, why do I say that? Because we're talking about behavior, and I'm coming to that, Rodney, right? I worked at the Rochester City School District for 9 years. I call it 9 years in the belly of the beast, because I got up front, close, and personal with many of our young people. I love working with and on behalf of young people. And we did some things at the district that were phenomenally successful, but we didn't have the opportunity to bring them to scale, right? And that one thing, as it relates to our youth, is not just with our youth, because what I learned from one of my most amazing teachers in terms of our behavior, and that teacher is Dr. Joy DeGruy, who wrote the book. I always, because I know, because it works.
True indeed.
Who wrote the book on post-traumatic slave syndrome. When I met Joy, now we're brother and sister. I met Joy back in 2011, right? And we've developed this relationship that it's a professional relationship, but now we're brother and sister. But one of the things that she told me and told us is that if you have limited resources, which I think we have enough resources to tell the truth, it's just how we allocate them, and I'll get back to that in a second. If we have limited resources, don't work on the youth, work on the parents. Because the parents should be reinforcing what we do with young people on a daily basis. But contrary, because the parents have been hurt themselves. Again, what happened to them? Remember that question we talked about?
Right.
Because our education system, our economic system, our everything system has failed many parents.
Right.
So they are now living out the trauma that has been, that they experienced.
Right.
Because little Tyrone, little Jerome, run home from school, run into the house, which invariably, given our current statistics, may be a single-parent house. Mom in the house, and little Jerome, little Tyrone, little Rodney run the house, and within 10 minutes, because Mom may have had a stressful day, she said, "I can't stand you. You look just like..."
Right.
You know what I mean? So that trauma. What did I do with the kid? So the kid's going to do whatever, and he's going to find love someplace.
Right.
And I used to go over to 4 North when I used to work in the school district. 4 North and Plymouth, that's where the jail is, to talk to young people over there. But more than to talk to them, to listen to them.
Right.
And listen to their why. And 100% of the time, They were following somebody to do what they did, or were instructed by someone to do what they did to end up. So, but we have some prescriptions for those things, right? Centered in our Africanness for the children.
That's right.
And also for the parents simultaneously, because we can't leave. Remember, I told you we have a whole family approach.
Right.
And what has been proven and proven over and over again in this country, in urban centers, to put our young people, when I say young people, I'm talking about 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, through the rites of passage, African-centered rites of passage.
That's right.
And what is that, Jerome? It teaches them and encourages them to live out their nobility.
Right.
Hear the word I'm using? Their nobility to themselves, to their family, and ultimately to their community.
True indeed.
Because these young people who are going around doing nefarious things, they're not living out their nobility. We know that. But they're being instructed by elder people who are also not living out their nobility and thus wreaking havoc. So we have a crisis in that, and we're working collaboratively with our brother Victor Saunders because he's the expert. I'm not an expert on violence, but I am an expert in youth development and family development.
Right.
And our role in that is prevention. And what we find, there's not enough investment in the prevention. It's almost like, if you're an athlete, I like using sports analogies because that's how I'm an athlete.
Right.
I'm a little out of shape now, but but the summertime is coming.
True indeed.
Before you go do anything, you got to train. You got to exercise. You got to stretch, because if you go into the game and don't stretch, guess what? You're going to pull a muscle.
Right.
Right? I'm saying that the training, the exercise is the prevention. Right? And we need to invest in that, because training is much more important than the game. Because how you can play the game?
Right.
Because you practice.
Right.
So that when the game comes, like, oh, I know this scenario. I've been in this situation and training. We practice for it. So we need to get our children into that environment to accentuate their positive, their nobility, while at the same time we have curriculum, strengths of the black family, to teach. Because again, I don't know about you, but nobody ever gave me a parent handbook. But you know what? We have some skills and techniques to teach our parents, which are similar. Again, focus on us as African people, so that from birth to the moment people become an ancestor, we have a blueprint that we should follow. That's not being followed with any kind of consistency. Ergo, we have what we have. Focusing on our culture, African scent, has not been done in any sort of expansive way.
True indeed. True. And I see where you're going at. And that's definitely, we got to start, what you're saying is that we got to start giving our children knowledge from an Afrocentric point of view.
100%.
In order for them to have the behavior that we need them to have.
Yeah.
To make this a better community and to be our future, what it's supposed to be.
And yes, but before we can do that, before we get to the children, we have to get to the parents, because you have to believe it. Because you can't teach it and live it if you don't believe it.
True indeed.
And that's a challenge that we're working on.
True indeed. True indeed. Well, I'm tell you what, I'm going to be doing a lot of that, what you're talking about, real soon. A lot of that, trying to teach our youth some Afrocentric. Like you say, I got a very big heart for the youth. I think God put me here to do a lot of things with the youth. And I'm going to be doing a lot of that too. And I hope that I can get you to come by and do a lot of speaking with me with a lot of things I'm going to be doing with youth, as far as doing that Afrocentric thing, teaching from an Afrocentric perspective. I definitely want to do that, especially for a person that I'm over this archive, Dr. Freddie Thomas. I definitely want to spray it on and do what he done.
Yeah.
And I want to keep that going on.
Yeah.
I definitely want to keep that going on what him and Mitch Thomas did. So I look forward to be doing that one day. But we about out of time, man. I love to have you all the time, man. Always a great conversation, man.
You too, brother.
I mean, what I can do is shake my head when you're over there and just listen to you, man. And every time you always telling me, I always say that I see you always working with somebody. You somewhere working. People don't know what you be doing. People don't know what you be doing. You be working with somebody just trying to make something happen. Exactly what the hell I be talking about all the time. You be like, oh, I'm working. You know what I mean? When you get down to it.
We taking action to try to make a better community, man.
True indeed, man. True indeed, man. Hey, man, I love to have you on, and I got to bring you on again real soon. You know, hey, we go another few months. I got to bring you in for that quarterly update.
I mean, well, it's Black History Month.
True indeed. That's about to come up.
Every single month.
Every single month. Oh, true indeed. True indeed. And now you're talking.
Every single month.
Every single month. Every single month. Every single
that's
day.
Where we are, man.
True indeed. True indeed, man. Yeah. Bless your heart, man. I love you to death. You know, ever since Loretta Scott told me about you, man, I said, you know, I'm going to watch this man right here, and you haven't disappointed me, man. True indeed, man. Definitely. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm going to have you on, and we got to get out of here, man. And we out.
This is 100.9 FM. Hey, WXIR, Extreme Independent Radio. In Rochester, NY, and online at 109WXIR.com.